Bob Van Hoff from Heart of Messiah and Torah Resource Institute. This week we're going to look at Parashat Bemidbar. That is the first Torah portion from the book of Numbers. So we begin the book of Numbers, and what we're looking at here on the screen is an image from the Washington Pentateuch that finishes in the right-hand column the book of Leviticus. It says, Elah HaMitzvot asher tziva Adonai et Moshe el bnei Yisrael bahar Sinai. And these are the commandments that the Lord commanded Moshe for the sons of Israel, bahar Sinai, at Mount Sinai. And you notice how the scribe, so this is about 1,000 years old, this beautifully produced manuscript of the Torah. The last book of, or the last verse rather, of the book of Leviticus is spaced out in this column, very lovely manner, to the word Sinai at the very bottom. So it's as if the scribal convention here did not want to just write it, the verse up at the top and then finish. That the convention is to have the aesthetic take the verse to end at the very bottom line. And so he spaced it out very nicely. And then, well, what do we know? Well, that's the end of the book of Leviticus. And the next book of the Torah, the fourth book of Moses, is known as Numbers, or Bemidbar, in the wilderness, as it's known in Hebrew. Some Masoretic references call this book Vaydaber, and he spoke, because it's the only book of the Torah that begins with Vaydaber, and so that's another way it was referred to in the Middle Ages. But we know it as Numbers, the book of Numbers, which is from the word mispar, which is down here in one of the first verses. So we get to the end of the book of Leviticus, and he leaves a whole column empty. Isn't that beautiful? And then he starts the fourth book of the Torah, the book of Numbers, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe Bemidbar Sinai, and the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, up here at the beginning of its own column. Now, I wanted to zoom in here. Let's see if it'll work. The Facebook Zoom has really failed, and I don't know what's going on with Facebook, but they have, when I zoom in, it cuts up the image, and this is a recent thing, and I'm not sure why it's doing it, so it takes a while to update. But I just wanted to investigate. Let me zoom in, if I can zoom in one more. There we go. It says, and the Lord spoke to Moses saying, and I want to zoom over here, and you'll see, there we go. Come on, Facebook. There's a little circle. It says, and the Lord spoke to Moshe Bemidbar Sinai. So here we have Bemidbar Sinai, in the wilderness of Sinai. And there's a little circle here. And that little circle refers us to this note over here in the margin. And it's hard to read because it's pretty faded. And it's in shorthand. It says kol, and then it's sifra, but we only see Samik Yod Pei with a dot, which means it's the word for book, all the book. That means kol sifra is Aramaic to say all this book of Numbers. And then it says be mid, and then you see the dalet with a little dot above it. The dot means this is shorthand, be mid, which means Bemidbar, and then it says Sinai. So the whole book, Kol Sifra, Bemidbar Sinai, it says in the wilderness of Sinai, and then it says Be Mem with a dot, Bet. And whenever you have the letter Bet here, or any number, any letter with a dot above it by itself, it means a number, so it's 2. And the Bet Mem here is short in Aramaic for Bar Min, which means accept. So this is Masoretic shorthand, Kol Sifra Bemidbar Sinai Bar Min Bet, which means the whole book of Numbers has Bemidbar Sinai, in the wilderness of Sinai, except 2 times. Except 2 times. Now, why does that matter? Well, there's 2 different ways that we can interpret this note. One is this phrase, Bemidbar Sinai. Well, if you look in all the Torah, Bemidbar Sinai, in the wilderness of Sinai, all of its occurrences are in the book of Numbers, except one. It occurs in Leviticus 1 time, Bemidbar Sinai. And so it's unique. So the scribes see it as unique. The one occurrence in Leviticus is kind of seen by them as an outlier. They also recognize that it only occurs outside of the book of Numbers only once. So that bit of Masoretic knowledge is also preserved by the letter Lamed in the book of Leviticus next to that, meaning it only occurs here in the Torah except for all its occurrences that are in Numbers. Well, what is this except 2 then? All the book of Numbers, it says Bemidbar Sinai, in the wilderness of Sinai, except 2. Well, there's 2 possibilities. One is there's 2 places in the book of Numbers where it says Bahar Sinai. Bahar Sinai, at the Mount Sinai. So perhaps the Masorete here has in mind that there's every time Sinai is mentioned with the Be, it's Bemidbar, in the wilderness of Sinai. But there's except 2 times where it says Bahar Sinai, at the Mount of Sinai. That's one possibility. Another possibility is there are, in all the Torah, there's only 2 times where we read Midbar Sinai, from the wilderness of Sinai. And those are in the book of Numbers. So in all the Torah, there's only 2 occurrences of Mimidbar Sinai, from the wilderness of Sinai. So it's possible that the Masoretic note here is saying one or the other. And I don't know enough to know if I can eliminate one of those possibilities. I lean towards the interpretation here that it means 2 times we'll have Bahar Sinai, is because the Masoretic note is pointing out this letter Bet here. Midbar Sinai, except 2. In this short note, he didn't bother to tell us what those exceptions were, so we kind of have to guess. So there you have it. Well, I'm going to zoom back out, and hopefully the Facebook, see, it's not keeping up like it needs to, which is disappointing. Something's wrong with the Facebook video feed. To look at a manuscript from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which we like to look at, that has a section from our Torah portion here. And this is from 4Q23. 4Q23, you see I have that note up here in the corner. That's what I named the file. 4Q23, Numbers, from Numbers chapter 1. Sadly, we don't have much from Numbers chapter 1 that survives, but we do have this here. And this is not from the very first verse, but it's from right at the beginning. And I'll see if maybe I can get it both on the screen at the same time. Give me just a sec. Maybe let me zoom this in once here. Yeah, the Facebook is really frustrating right now. So what we have is this verse here. You can see here we have a Lamed, a Tzadi, an Aleph, Tav, and Mem. And I can copy over those. Maybe I'll use a yellow, see what yellow looks like here. So there's our Lamed. Here's our Tzadi. An Aleph kind of looks like that. A Tav. And then a Mem Sofit. So here we have Mem with a nice big Sofit. And then it says Me'eretz. We have a Mem we have another aleph, we have a resh, and then a tzadi sofit. And we know this is from our passage here. We have le tzetam me'eretz. Le tzetam me'eretz. When they went out from the land of Egypt. So we would have, Mitzrayim right here to the left of Me'eretz. In their going out of the land of Egypt. And that is a good clue here that we're dealing with a fragment from the book of Numbers. And then we see right below that, we see a bet. Oops, let me get back to my bet. Mem, Samek, Pei, and a resh. And then we have a shin, another mem, a vav, and a tav. So I tried to replicate the style here, but this is Bemidbar Shemot. And I have to move this up a little bit, and I know that Facebook graphic is going to look kind of cattywampus until it resets. There we go. According to this is where it says it, that they're going to count. It says Se'u et rosh kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Basically, Se'u rosh means lift up the head, but it literally means count, take a head count, according to their families, according to the house of their fathers. Bemispar shemot, according to the number of names. Bemispar shemot kol zachar lagul galotam, according to their heads. It basically is an idiom meaning get a head count. And so what we see here in our manuscript is Bemispar shemot. So we know that this fragment then is from the first passage, the first 3 verses of the book of Numbers. And what I already did earlier to save time, I kind of did my own reconstruction of the letters of the alphabet that are attested in this particular fragment here that we're looking at. And I'll maybe make this a little bigger. And you can see the letters. So I'll erase kind of what I did and kind of review those. So the aleph here, here's an aleph, here's an aleph, and there's an aleph here, otam, and there's another one here. So we have 4 alephs that we can identify on this manuscript, and this was my effort to describe that. The bet, let's see, bet here for Bemispar, and one from Tzava, or down here. So we have 2 bets. So it's based on those 2 bets, I kind of reconstructed what the bet was made, and maybe like this bet down here, he has a little, maybe flatter, more level line than I gave it in my up here. But that's okay. A vav, we saw a vav for Shemot down here. And I think that's the only vav. So we only have 1 vav attested. But this is like doing an inventory. If we have a fragment, what are the letters that are attested? And what do they look like? Lamed, can you guys see the Lamed? There's 1 Lamed. Let's see, do we have another Lamed? If you looked here, you're right. The Lameds usually stick out nicely because they have that unmistakable neck that sticks way up high. So we have 2 Lameds. Now, this was really cool because we have 2 mems. We have 2 mem forms. We have the mem as it occurs in the middle of a word, and a sofit mem. So let's see. So here's our mem sofit. That's easy to find. Here's an initial mem, or a mem that's in the middle of the word. Bemispar, we have a mem here. Shemot, we have an M. Here's another mem sofit for otam. So look at that. We've got 3 mems that are middle of the word mems, and then we have 2 final mems. So mems are well attested here. So that's where I got those. Then Samic. We only have 1 Samic for Mispar right here. And we have a pay. Now the pay is strange, but that's it right here. It's right after the Samic for the word Mispar. The way we make pays today, we really curl it in. But here, they kind of just go like that, which is coherent with the way pays were made in a lot of other manuscripts. Another letter we have twice attested, like with the mem and the mem sofit, is the tzadi. We have a tzadi and a tzadi sofit. So for example, letzeitam, we have a tzadi, and then we have, for down here, we have 2 tzadis. And then we have me'eretz, which is a final tzadi, like that. So this manuscript is dated, I think it's Herodian. They date it to the Herodian period, which means it could be late 1st century BC. And we have the emergence then of these use of final forms is starting to be more consistent. Then we have 3 more letters attested, a resh, a shin, and a tav. Here we got me'eretz, there's a resh, bemispar, there's a resh, and that's it. Just 2 reshes. The sheen, we only have 1 sheen, and it's for the word shemot right here. And the way, it almost looks like he makes it like a W. Like normally we think of a shin like this, or like this. Well here, if you notice, it's almost like he does a second stroke. It doesn't look, or maybe he does something like that. In any event, we have 1 shin, and that's it. And then for tav, though, we have a few. We have, right, let's say tam, we have a tav. At shemot, we have a tav. And then we have from otam. So 3 tavs. And what we noticed about this tav is that, normally we learn a tav to be like this, where the top has that extra little bit. The way this and other scribes made it at Qumran is that it's like this. So it still has this little foot, but instead of that we write today, it goes down on the side. It's still understandable to be a tav. And that's one of the core features about a letter is that the letter needs to be able to be differentiated from other letters. That's one of the important factors. But with that differentiation, there's a lot of variation as we see. So again, this is just a little fragment here from the Dead Sea Scrolls, from Qumran Cave 4, which was a big stash. And the Cave 4, if maybe you've never heard or don't remember, Cave 4 was part of the larger Qumran settlement, and it was within the very, very close to the actual settlement, and it was a man-made cave. So they dug it out, and it served as a active storage, an active library storage. So they would go and they would be putting in, storing, and retrieving texts from Cave 4 as part of their normal study habits. It was an active library, very close within the confines of the Qumran settlement. And those caves like Cave 4 are to be differentiated from caves that were the really hard to get to natural caves, which also were used for storage, but for long-term storage. So there would be jars with manuscripts rolled up, scrolls rolled up, and placed in like permanent hiding or storage in really hard to get to natural caves up on the cliffs. Cave 4, the cave that this manuscript comes from, was not such a cave. The Cave 4 was a man-made cave very close to the actual settlement, just a short little path to get to, and it even apparently served as temporary sleeping quarters. So it was a more spacious and was maneuverable for a person or two to be inside of. Whereas some of those, the hard to get to natural caves that were used for long-term storage and hiding were very rarely hospitable to a person being able to go and actually sleep in there or even be in there, because they're smaller, real confined spaces. Hi Janet, hi Terry, hi Becky. Glad you were able to join today. I hope this was fun. So we're starting off the book of Bemidbar, and Lord willing, we'll continue to be able to do these every week and just explore the ancient manuscripts according to the Torah portion. And this image here we have from Cave 4 is just a small little bit, but it's enough to see that it was definitely the beginning of the book of Numbers. And there are some little things now. I've never seen this in person, but over along the side, it's possible that these were little holes for stitching, maybe. Again, I don't know. This is just seeing what the photograph allows me to see here. But it's not uncommon, as we have seen in other scrolls, where it's clearly there are holes where different pieces of leather or parchment, as we call it, were stitched together to extend the length of the scroll. So I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom, and I hope you're doing okay in this crazy virus situation we're in. Shalom, shalom.